Abroad Pod.
Hello, listener. Thank you so much for joining us on the latest edition of the Teaching Abroad Pod, where we discuss a wide range of topics related to teaching, living, traveling, and just living your best life overseas. I'm co-hosting this week. My name's Alex, and with me will be my colleague, Lucas LaPlante from the Oxford Seminars Job Placement Service. Lucas, how are things going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Summer's in full bloom, so you can't complain about the weather, that's for sure.
My favorite part of the year.
So we get to talk about traveling this episode. It's sort of a travel-based episode, which is exciting for us. And we're talking about traveling in Europe, one of the top destinations in the world, if not the top, continent probably for travel. So have you had a chance to do any traveling in Europe, Luke?
Yes, actually I took a backpacking trip through Europe. We did, it was Rome, France, Amsterdam, and London.
And how long did you go for?
About 3 weeks.
Oh, nice. And any highlights stand out?
So many. It would take me forever to go through them all. It was a great trip. I love Europe.
Yeah, me too. I love it. I did a semester abroad in Poland, and then I've been back and forth a few times, especially Spain is a place I spent a lot of time, Spain and Portugal. And actually our guest Kim today was in Italy, Spain, and Portugal. So we're going to talk to her a lot more about what it's like to travel and even work remotely from those countries, which is interesting.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. So without further ado, let's get right into the interview with our guest, Kim. We're very excited to be joined this week by our guest, Kim, who's been busy traveling in Europe over the past few months. Kim has a bachelor's degree in sociology from Concordia University and also completed her Oxford Seminars TESOL certification in 2021. We love talking about travel on this show, so we're very grateful to have the chance to hear some of Kim's travel stories from Europe. So Kim, thank you for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to take the Oxford Seminars course last year?
Absolutely. So I feel like it was about a good 10 years in the making, where I do love Montreal, where I'm from, Montreal, Canada. But I've always kind of wanted to explore different cultures. And at the time, what made the most sense was teaching abroad. I obviously thought about the gain of, getting to live these experiences while still getting an income. So that seemed like a really cool thing to do. And I love children. So I was just like, okay, let's just add those three things together and make it happen.
Yeah, that was more or less my rationale as well. So how did you find the course? Did you have any prior teaching or tutoring experience before signing up?
I had not. I'd done kind of like just casual tutoring in terms of the fact that in Montreal, obviously the predominant language is French. So due to the fact that I am bilingual, I would kind of like help students when I was in high school and stuff like that, just kind of like if their English up to par in terms of like exams and stuff like that, but nothing in terms of like teaching children. So I had never done that before now.
So do you think you'll find yourself in the classroom in the future, or were your teaching plans affected by the pandemic last year?
No, the pandemic definitely opened the doors for me to take time aside and take the course, especially because it was a virtual. But that's definitely something that I am looking to do at a later time. South Korea is definitely the goal, and I still like to live that experience, especially after having done the course and hearing all the amazing stories that came from it and the amazing experiences. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm still considering.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend Korea. It's one of our top markets.
Yes.
So now that, fingers crossed, we're at the tail end of the pandemic and things are opening up again, we're very happy to spend some time talking to you today about traveling. So a lot of people's travel plans have been put on hold over the past few years. So is the current trip to Europe something that you'd planned, had in mind for a while already?
No. So when I was in the process of kind of like looking into the placement after doing the certificate, there's kind of like this societal pressure that came upon me. And I was like, okay, I'm in my 30s and I should start doing things like getting a house and stuff like that. Not that I strongly suggest following in my footsteps and succumbing to those society's pressures. But I knew right off the bat when I was doing the certificate that obviously in terms of the career path that I'm on right now, that I wouldn't be earning as much, but it would be, the experience. The pandemic definitely had its downsides, but one of the upsides was the possibility of working abroad. So after having gotten feedback from some of my peers who'd done it like over the winter in like Costa Rica and France and stuff like that, I was just like, okay, well, right now I'm kind of like this close to, looking into buying my first property. And that just seems like the smartest thing to do. And also it puts me in a position that when I do end up going to teach abroad, at least I'll kind of have like that property. I'll have accomplished that goal of mine, and then I can rent it out for the time being that I'm over there. So I'm still, adulting.
Yeah, our
One of
other
those
co-host Rowan just moved down to Costa Rica for a year with his small family, and they're working from there.
I love that.
So this is sort of a bit of a work trip then. You're working and traveling at the same time?
Exactly. So I'm working abroad. I've been working abroad for the past 3 months and a half.
So how's that been going in terms of your workflow? I mean, able to keep up with all your duties and still get out and enjoy some sightseeing?
Absolutely. I'm fortunate enough to have a position that doesn't require me to directly speak with clients. And we do have like really amazing policies, such as like unlimited paid vacation. So whenever there was a day where I wanted to kind of like go sightseeing during the day or stuff like that, I would just kind of like submit a request, as long as I just basically deal with the backlog. So if anything, my manager was just like, "Oh, you're really productive. You're killing the backlog." And I was like,
yeah, that's great.
So in terms of your trip so far, where have you been? Which countries have you visited?
I started off with Sicily, so Palermo specifically. Obviously, it's more coastal, so there were the things that I needed for the summer, which were just like mountains and water and good food, seafood specifically. So I wanted to do that, and then I was in Spain for a month. So I did Sicily for a month, Spain for another month. I visited as well within Spain, and now I'm currently in Portugal. And we'll be leaving for, you can't see that there's luggage and things everywhere behind me right now, but I'm leaving for Poland tonight, just for a week. And then I'm doing the UK, well, London. I was supposed to do London and Scotland, but things happen. You meet people that you want to continue building friendships with. So kind of had to change the itinerary. And then the UK portion of my trip, which is the part that's coming up, was the only part that I had not planned yet in terms of accommodations and stuff like that. So it was really easy for me to kind of like just switch it up. So I kind of like think it's important to, yes, be structured in terms of the planning of your trip if you're doing something for such a lengthy period of time, but it's also important to leave yourself kind of like that leeway and that flexibility to kind of like do other things should you want to.
Well, it sounds like you've done quite a lot of planning. That sounds amazing.
It didn't always work out the way that I wanted, and I'm assuming we're probably going to get to that, but yeah, I did.
So are there any specific sites you visited so far that stand out, or any highlights that you would say are particularly amazing?
Gosh, I feel like when you experience everything for the first time, everything is just like, kind of like takes your breath away. But specific places, so I went to Porto in Portugal, and I was just like, what better place than to go for like a Porto wine tasting? And it was just amazing to kind of like get the history of it, especially because that's where it originated from. So it was my kind of museum, if I
Sounds pretty good.
It was definitely amazing. And just the getting to kind of like walk in the footsteps of this generation upon generation family business and seeing bottles of wine that are probably, that were older than me. I think the first bottle was created in 1819, sorry.
Wow.
So I was like touching it as if it was gold. But that was really cool. And then I also got to visit like a natural reserve in Sicily. That was beautiful. The water, the rocks, just beaches like you'd never like seen before. And I feel like, I mean, I'm from Canada, we have lakes. Well, the part that I'm from. So just kind of like experiencing those beaches, and just people are just so warm in the south of Europe. It's just been like an amazing experience. And I was just in Lagos, Portugal, same concept with like the beautiful like rocks and like this indescribable color of water, that's kind of like a turquoise but a blue, but like it was just, amazing. I love water. So
it sounds like you've had some interesting adventures and maybe a few misadventures or interesting stories, memorable incidents that have occurred so far. Anything stand out in your memory?
Well, for one, when it comes to like, let's say the planning, when it comes to Spain, after doing some research, I decided I didn't want to go to like the bigger cities. I kind of wanted to experience these different places with locals, like being amongst the locals and just kind of like, taking the different cultures and struggle with the language for as much as I could and stuff like that. So I wanted to book, or so in my head, I booked Alicante, Spain.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got there, was looking very much like countryside, and I was just like, okay, I thought I would get a mix of country and city, but and so it ended up kind of being like a beach town, which was great to a certain extent because there was a lot of socializing in Italy, a lot of sightseeing, a lot of like partying and stuff like that. So I was happy to kind of like have that mellow down moment, and everybody in that area must have been maybe 60 and over. It was kind of like a retirement area. So the vibe was definitely different. But every time I walked out of my house, I could see the beach. I could see it from my balcony. Like I was literally like a 3-minute walking distance from the beach. And the friends that I made were in that age group and they were fun. So I had like just a bunch of like parents with me who were just looking out for me and stuff like that. But it was definitely like a change of pace, more than I expected, but it ended up working out. Like I still made the best of it, and I still managed to visit other places. It's just that I was a little far off from where I initially wanted to be.
Okay, so yeah, it can be a little hit or miss sometimes with when you're booking things online, I've noticed as well.
Yes, exactly. And I think also just the reality of things, and obviously that's something that I had considered even when I was looking into South Korea, of like traveling solo, but also traveling solo as like a visible minority. Those are definitely things to keep into consideration. Sometimes you'll feel discomfort, you'll be in uncomfortable situations and stuff like that. Nothing worth worrying about, but I would definitely suggest to do the research. There's a lot of vlogs and stuff like that on YouTube, just so you kind of like understand the reality. Kind of like just being Black in South Korea was something that I looked up a lot at the time that I was considering teaching there. And just to be alert so that you don't have any surprises if you get like a certain type of treatment and stuff like that. But it's definitely, I think people had me more scared about the reality, about what I would experience than the reality that I've had so far.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 20 years, and you could be next. Their comprehensive 120-hour program starts with live instruction from an experienced ESL teacher, followed by convenient online modules. If your goal is to relocate overseas or even teach from the comfort of your own home, Oxford Seminars' renowned lifetime job placement service will get you where you want to be. Right now, you can get $50 off your Oxford Seminars TESOL TESOL TEFL course price when paying in full by calling 1-800-779-1779 and giving the code TEACHINGABROADPOD. Visit oxfordseminars.com today to find out more.
Okay. Well, did you have any other recommendations or anything that you would put out there for other people traveling in the same areas?
Absolutely. I would say if you basically have a social media, and then if you specifically have like a Facebook account, what I suggest is to look up the city and then expats or meetups or things like that. What happens is you get to like meet amazing people. A lot of the times locals will also partake in some of these activities just because they want to kind of like practice their English and stuff like that. So you get to, meet people from all over the world, and you also get to expand because obviously you're going to search up different things to do in an area. But sometimes people have the little, secret spots that you're happy to have discovered. But if it wasn't from speaking to like a local or something, you wouldn't have been made aware. So I think definitely just looking up the city meetups or stuff like that, that's really cool. There's also the app meetup that I suggest, because eventually like traveling for so long solo, it's never horrible to like make connections and then have people to do things with. There are those moments where you do want to socialize and you'd prefer to have a dinner with a group of people or go to places with people, or just to rent a spot in a workspace as well in the city that you're visiting is fun. If it's not for like this, like evening, like nightlife socializing, you also get that kind of like just work life balance.
So you talked a bit about food and drink, and those are a couple of topics that we love to talk about on the podcast. Sounds like there's something that's an important part of the travel experience so far. So I'm sure Italy was a highlight. Anything stand out in your memory? Great restaurants or dishes that you'd recommend?
Well, my favorite restaurant was one that I discovered with the expat group. It wasn't always just like the sightseeing and stuff like that and the hiking activities and whatnot, but a lot of it was nightlife as well. And then my favorite restaurant was actually Dal Pompiere. The amount of food that you could have for so cheap is just, and the quality of it, because sometimes it doesn't always mean quality, but just like the quality of it. So you had like your authentic Sicilian dishes. What I did learn in Sicily, though, is, let's say, I don't know if you guys know like arancinis, like the rice balls that are like fried with like meat in them or cheese. So in Sicily, for some reason, they feminized the word. So it's arancine. So like a singular form would be arancina, but throughout the world, it's known as arancini, like it's a masculine form. So I feel like whenever you said it in the masculine form, they would correct you. They take offense to it. They are not okay. Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay.
It's a thing. If you go order an arancini, it's not going to work out. You'll get looks, you'll get things. But that's the restaurant. The service was amazing. I fell in love with one of the waitresses there, Rosita. Can't wait to go see her again someday. But just the amount of food was just like crazy at Dal Pompiere for, I think I want to say maybe like 12 euros. And you would get like the entree, the main course, dessert, and then like a beer, a glass of wine, and like a beer, like not like, you know, and or like a mountain of just like mixed seafood and fish and stuff like that. Obviously, the places that I've done so far are pretty coastal. So I've been living off of seafood and I hate nothing about it. I love seafood. I love seafood. I've definitely tried different things. When you're traveling and discovering new things, you're just like open to anything. There's kind of like this little extra level of curiosity. Can't think of, but the Dal Pompiere one in Italy was definitely the one that stands out.
Yeah.
So how about drinks? Is there anything, you mentioned the wine there, of course, that's to be assumed, but anything else you'd recommend?
For some reason, I don't know if it's just me that was not aware, but there's so many different versions of sour things. So like gin sours, and also what's really amazing is, let's say with Spain, what they're really known for is their oranges. So the most popular thing to drink in Spain was Agua de Valencia. It looks like just a pot of orange juice, but it tastes so good. So you don't realize that there's any alcohol in it, but it's really amazing. It's kind of like a sangria. It's refreshing, but it's just like amazing, pulpy, tasty orange. Out of all the places that I've done, every single place is very strong on their natural juices. So you'll have naturally pressed orange juice, watermelon, pineapple. Everything is just so fresh and it's just so popular. You'll have like little stands on the street that just kind of like serve natural juices. So it's fine. It's good and it's nice and it's refreshing. And I feel like on hot days, because the heat in Europe in the summer is very intense. But it's always nice to have like a beautiful glass of natural, refreshing juice to kind of like cleanse out everything else on all the cheap wine and that's been consumed. So that's been,
So another topic that we touch on a lot on the show is money. So I wonder about your traveling in Europe. Have you found it expensive in the south of Europe? Have you been able to stick to a budget, or how's that been?
So I didn't have a budget. I wanted to kind of live all the experiences that I wanted, when I wanted, and how I wanted to live them. So have I gone over budget? Probably. But I didn't shy away from didn't shy away from anything really. But I think that obviously, well, from Canada, like the currency is a little bit different. Obviously the euro costs more, but it's not expensive at all. Well, the south of Europe is definitely not as expensive as people would assume it to be, or as I even expected. Things are incredibly cheap, incredibly fresh as well. I feel like even in my cases, I've been renting out Airbnbs. And so I've been cooking a lot as well. And I just feel like even like the regular like pasta almost feels like there's no preservatives and it's so much cheaper. It'll be like 25 cents at the grocery store, which is really not that bad. It'll be like 90 cents to like a dollar for like the homemade type of pasta that they just kind of like dried up and are selling at the grocery store. So I feel like it's pretty cheap if you're not booking like boat tours or stuff like that. Like just to get by, I don't think it's expensive at all, and shouldn't be a reason to stop you from wanting to come. But the north of Europe, I can't say much about that, just because when I went to like Rome and Florence and that, I feel like it was a lot more touristy. It was a lot more expensive as well than the way of life in the South.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Actually, that was just the next question I was going to ask you, like in terms of price, what's more expensive, less expensive? Has the euro made prices sort of similar across different borders, do you find?
Yeah, I definitely think so. What's less expensive, always had me by surprise, is the alcohol. So let's say wine, like a bottle of wine will be like €1.80 at the store, which even converted to that's like $3, or like an 8-pack of Heineken, which I'm assuming is, imported and it's going to be super expensive, but it was like 57 cents and it was an 8-pack. And I was like, I've never seen an 8-pack before. So I feel like alcohol is extremely cheap. And I'm just going to come back to like the seafood, because I feel like if I were to go to like a Red Lobster or something for like half of the quantity that I would get here, it's already almost double the price. Like I had like a full seafood pasta with like mussels, scampies. I think there's just another like 3-4 different types, and the plate of pasta was like €9, which really is maybe like $14. Whereas if I went to like a restaurant back home, that plate of pasta would have been like $38. So, but I feel like those are the things that I was most impressed with, being extremely cheap.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked about the prices.
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds like it's been an amazing trip. We do have a final question we always ask, and it's usually about advice for someone who's thinking about getting started teaching English overseas. But since this is more of a travel episode, we thought we'd ask it about traveling. So do you have any advice for someone who's thinking about, embarking on an adventure to go, work or travel, live overseas for a while?
Absolutely. I think it requires some planning for sure before you leave home. And I'm talking about the planning that like nobody really wants to do, which is just like kind of like contacting your insurance, just to make sure that the travel insurance, like what exactly it covers, like the financial institutions and stuff like that. You don't want to have any surprises of like being abroad and suddenly having no access to your funds. That would not be great. So it's just important to kind of like let the financial institutions know about stuff like that. Maybe be a little bit more curious about where you're going to end up than I was. I was just like, oh, this looks great on Google Images. That's where I want to go. And so definitely do more research in terms of like what exactly you can do, where exactly it's located. Don't be shy to contact Airbnb hosts if you're thinking about going somewhere. I think that was the part where I was just like, it looks close enough to this and whatnot. But then when you get on site, what seemed close on a map could in fact be like an hour away from, what you wanted. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, look up those kind of like meetup groups and expat groups and stuff, and not being shy. And if not, there's just like, even just if you write like living in, I don't know, Lisbon, you'll have groups that just talk about like your regular stuff, basic information, like how to take the bus and stuff like that, because the internet was saying one thing and then people were just like, no, actually you can just do this, or what clinics can I go to with just like my passport and stuff like that. So go out there and get the information. Don't be shy to like join these different groups to get the information. If you're somebody that's going to be broadcasting or displaying your travels, do it in a smart way. Like don't post, you walking back home or stuff like that. That can be traceable, and that can be, with like just a hashtag or something like that. Anybody can have access to that. And, if you're a solo traveler and then you're a woman, these are things that can bring you in situations that you don't want to. So just be careful ultimately, but mostly like just have fun and don't be shy to like just take in the different cultures. I think if you're someone that's just a little bit more like apprehensive about things, I think once you travel abroad, you should just be willing to take it in to the fullest.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it changes you and you have to be open to the experience of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I find when you're in a foreign culture, just say yes to everything. That's my advice.
Exactly.
And then pay the price later.
Worry about it tomorrow.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us today, Kim. It was great to hear your stories, and we really appreciate you sharing them with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Kim. It was great to have you. And before we go, Lucas, do you have a JPS update for us this week?
We certainly do. We're very excited to announce that we recently established a new contact, which is a large chain of language schools located in various cities across Colombia. This contact is looking for lots of new teachers regularly throughout the year, and even has a small number of positions available for teachers who don't hold a bachelor's degree. Non-native speaking English teachers and couples are also welcome to apply. They offer competitive salaries for the region, as well as some financial assistance with both flights and housing costs. They also offer flexible contract options of 1, 6, or 12 months. If you've been thinking about applying to teach in Colombia, then now is the perfect time to get your application started with our new contact there.
Thanks very much for tuning into this episode of the Teaching Abroad Pod. We will be releasing new episodes regularly. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, Stitcher, and all the other places you find your podcasts. If you have any great ideas that you'd like to hear us discuss in upcoming episodes, please feel free to leave them in the comments on YouTube, send them in the comments to Oxford Seminars on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or email them to us at teachingabroadpod, all one word, at oxfordseminars.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.